While welcoming you to the 2017 Post-Budget Forum organized by the MBA Alumni Association of the University of Colombo and the Daily FT, may I please request you to rise for the national anthem. Thank you, everyone. You may sit down. Good morning once again. The thrust is to increase Sri Lanka's FDIs, a dynamic that Budget 2017 took into account, and that is very much in consideration today. For the very first time, you will have the views, the reasonings, and opinions from a unique panel today of listed multinational and majority foreign-owned listed and unlisted companies and conglomerates of whether Budget 2017 is on the right track and where do we go from here. So welcome to one of the most sought-after post-budget forums, the forum organized by the MBA Alumni Association of the University of Colombo and the Daily FT, with strategic partner HSBC and technical partner PwC. We'd like to hear from both our strategic partner and technical partner now.
tax landscape is constantly evolving, from changes in regulation, governance, technology and process, to shifts in business complexity and the level of scrutiny on tax. In this ever-changing world, stakeholders are demanding that risks are effectively and transparently managed. As tax specialists, our goal is to help you develop a tax strategy fit for the future. Tax management has evolved from being an isolated compliance function to a key enabler of an organisation's strategic direction. From changes in finance systems and leadership to regulatory challenge, tax errors and increased media attention, we can help you capitalise on change. As a change partner, we focus on building relationships. By integrating tax with your people, processes and technology and applying the latest developments in governance, risk and controls, our tax reporting and strategy team can help you minimise risks, maximise opportunities and achieve your organisation's true potential. From employment taxes to direct and indirect taxes, we bring together tax function design, technology and compliance delivery to offer a complete approach to the management of tax that focuses on the end-to-end process and not just the final output, giving you comfort that you are doing the right thing on tax and the confidence to talk about it. We can help you develop long-term tax management objectives rather than short-term solutions, not just by simply answering questions, but by helping to make sure that you're asking the right ones. Whether your future holds expansion, mergers, acquisitions or transformation, you can rely on us to see the bigger picture whilst taking care of the detail. As your partner through change, together we can invest in the future of tax. We have the expertise, the skills and the passion to help you meet tomorrow's tax challenges today.
In addition to our exclusive strategic partner, HSBC Sri Lanka, our technical partner, PwC Sri Lanka, I would also like to show our appreciation to our creative partner, RedWorks, electronic media partner, Gold FM, print partner, Haley's Cafe Pixel, and pay TV partner, SLT PEO TV. In fact, this forum is being telecast live on Event TV, Channel 20 on SLT PEO TV, and also will be simultaneously streamed on the SLT official YouTube channel. I would now like to invite on stage, firstly, while welcoming our Minister of Finance among us, Honorable Ravi Karunanayake, please make your way up to the stage. We'd also like to have the Director of Tax Services of PwC Sri Lanka, Shamin Tilakaratne, CHEC Port City Colombo Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, Mr. Liang Tao Ming. Could we have you on stage too? The Managing Director and CEO of Chevron Lubricants Lanka PLC, Dr. Kishu Gomez. GlaxoSmithKline Consumer, and the Chairman of that, Mr. Sunil Mehra. Ceylon Tobacco Company PLC's Finance Director, Emma Ridley. Managing Director and CEO of Peramal Glass Salon PLC, Mr. Sanjay Tiwari. Japan International Cooperation Agency's advisor to the BOI, Mr. Hideo Horigachi. The President of the MBA Alumni Association of the University of Colombo, Mr. Sarma Mahalingam. And joining them is the moderator, Mr. Nistar Qasim. I would now like to invite Mr. Sarma Mahalingam, as President of the MBA Alumni Association of the University of Colombo, to make his welcome address.
Very good morning to all of you. Honorable Finance Minister, Ravi Karunanayake, and the other officials from the Ministry. Mr. Mark Prateoro, CEO Sri Lanka and Maldives, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. Mr. Peter Hugan, Head of Commercial Banking of HSBC and the staff members. Dr. Pavitra Kailasabadi, Head of MBA Unit of University of Colombo. Eminent leaders from multinational organizations, past presidents, and members of the Exco Committee of MBA Alumni Association, University of Colombo, Mr. Nisar Qasim, the Chief Editor of the Daily FT and his team, Ms. Shamin Telagaratna, Director, PricewaterhouseCoopers, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. It's given me a great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of you to this Post-Budget Forum 2017. On behalf of Colombo MBA Alumni Association and Daily FT, we welcome you all. This is the 7th consecutive Post-Budget Forum of MBA Alumni Association of University of Colombo and Daily FT. 7 years ago, we embarked on this journey of creating a platform to bring the policymakers and leaders of the business fraternity to discuss the salient features and key insights of the budget and its impact to the business and the community at large. This forum would be slightly different from the previous ones. Today, you all are here to witness the analysis of the country's budget 2017 from an investment perspective. The main objective is to assist the foreign investment sector to understand the salient features of the budget 2017 from an investor perspective and how the budget would facilitate their operations in Sri Lanka. This is also a platform for the participants to raise matters of interest with the key policymakers in the country. We had a pre-budget brainstorming session with the Honorable Finance Minister, Ravi Karunanayake, and many associations representing the key sectors in October. We think it is our duty to organize such a forum as a professional association, and that we have done this together with the leading financial newspaper in line with national thinking. Much enthusiasm was noticed during past few weeks by the entire country over the second budget of our government. We are privileged to have the eminent panel of comprising chairmen, presidents, managing directors, CEOs, and CFOs from top multinational companies. Our deep sense of appreciation to the Honorable Minister Ravi Karunanayake and the panel of speakers for joining the forum despite of your busy schedule. This year, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation has joined us as an exclusive partner for the event, and we are grateful for their enthusiasm towards our country's development. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you all to join the discussion for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
A somewhat broad synopsis of the objectives of holding this post-budget forum. Thank you very much to Mr. Sarma Mahalingam. I would now like to invite to make his address his exclusive partner for this event, the CEO of HSBC Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Mr. Mark Protero.
Thank you. The Honourable Ravi Karunanayake, Minister of Finance, Mr. Sarma Mahalingam, President of the University of Colombo MBA Alumni Association, distinguished members of the expert panel, our moderator, the editor of the Daily FT, Mr. Nisar Qasim, all our valued clients who are here today in the audience, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good morning. As we all know, the budget for 2017 was presented to Parliament last week. The budget clearly outlines the government's objective of building a strong economy and a fair society where there is opportunity and security for all. If executed well, this will facilitate the creation of 1 million jobs, doubling per capita income, and achieving a GDP growth rate of 7% by 2025. We at HSBC, the leading international bank in Sri Lanka, in partnership with the Daily FT and the University of Colombo MBA Alumni Association, are delighted to have the Minister of Finance join us this morning as we bring this key forum to you. Our focus and the theme today is, will the 2017 budget shape and redefine our path with its economic policies and initiatives? Our forum, with the participation of Sri Lanka's eminent business leaders of multinational corporations, together with PricewaterhouseCoopers, will dissect the budget for you and talk about what that means for their industries going forward. I have been in Sri Lanka for just 5 short weeks, but in that time, I've already learnt about the many potential growth opportunities ahead. I was at a function recently where the central bank governor noted that we are now entering perhaps the greatest period of economic opportunity in Sri Lanka's history, and that we must all do our part to grasp it. For example, we at HSBC believe that Sri Lanka has much to gain through her strategic location in Asia. She is positioned centrally along the maritime Silk Road and therefore an integral part of China's One Belt, One Road initiative to increase investment and foster international collaboration. This touches upon all aspects of the infrastructure and construction value chain, from governments to contractors, investors, equipment manufacturers, commodity producers, and so on. Trade volumes between China and countries connected by the initiative are expected to surpass $2.5 trillion over the next decade. I'm very privileged to be the CEO of HSBC here in Sri Lanka as we approach our 125th year in Sri Lanka since opening our doors back in 1892. As part of Sri Lanka's roots, we have been and are committed to her development. With our local presence and our international presence, we take great pride in connecting customers to opportunities, in enabling businesses to thrive and the economy of the nation to prosper, and helping people fulfill their hopes and dreams and realizing their ambitions. I look forward to working with many of you and strengthening our partnerships even further. I hope that you experience a truly constructive and informative session. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the morning.
Thank you, Mr. Pratero. Brief though it was, there were some questions that were, or a question that was asked, which can be used as part of the background for our panelists today as they answer those queries and reason out about Budget 2017 and investment. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratero. It is now fitting, I would believe, given that it is a post-budget forum and the architect of the Budget 2017 to be called on to address you. Please welcome the Minister of Finance, Honourable Ravi Karunanayake. So he will participate in the panel, so I will give over the moderation to Nista, and then the Minister will address you after the moderation, the panel is over.
Thank you, Savitri. On behalf of Daily FT, let welcome you for this post-budget forum. We have got a unique opportunity of this eminent panel with us, and also Finance Minister agreeing to first listen to the comments as well as any questions and then respond. I think that's fairly a welcome move. What we will do is just want to make an announcement that the Shangri-La acting vice chairman unfortunately couldn't make it to today's event. So we regret that, but we have 2 officials who have flown in from Hong Kong for any clarifications needed. We will also, we'll start with some initial remarks from the panel, and the objective is for the participants to raise any questions or clarifications on the budget so that the Minister will be able to respond to rather than, because I think there is consensus that there is some clarity needed on some of the issues. I'd like to start the discussion by inviting from the Colombo Port City or the financial city, Mr. Liang Taoming.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here, Nishta. I think from the Port City point of view and from the real estate foreign direct investment point of view, This budget has been very refreshing for us. I think there are a couple of things that we have hoped for that have came true. For example, one which is allowing foreigners to purchase apartments on the below the 4th floor. The other one being allowing foreigners to take a loan from an LTV ratio of up to 40%. 40% is not much, but it is an improvement over what it was before. So that's a good start. All right. I think going forward, what we hope for is to see further relaxation. And I think there's a lot more we can do on this. And over the next few years, I hope we can, where Port City really comes to life in terms of marketing, we hope to see more policies put into place where it will help us to try and market that project to the global investors. One of the things that I have to highlight here is that the Port City is not in competition with any other projects in Sri Lanka. We are actually in competition with all the FDI destinations globally. And therefore, what we have to do is not to just evaluate how the local environment would affect us. We have to really try and work with the government and hopefully come up with policies that will help us compete against the other destinations in the other parts of the world. I mean, we are talking about Ho Chi Minh City, we are talking about Malaysia, Singapore. We're talking about practically every city that's trying to compete for the FDI dollar. All right? And we have to see how we can position ourselves and make ourselves more attractive than some of these other places. And even in terms of, say, for example, the financial city, all right? There are more than 80 financial cities in the world. And how do we compete against the other 80 financial cities? That's something that we have to address, and we have to address quickly because Port City is going to come to life very soon. I am sure you see the activity that's going on site right now after we have started work about slightly more than a month ago. And very soon, I think, we all can get excited at what you can see on site, and hopefully we can be a major contributor to the economy of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liang. I'd like to invite Sanjay Tiwari from Piramal to make some observations.
Thank you, Mr. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, FT and HSBC for inviting me here. What is important for existing investors is the consistency of policies and encouragement to reinvest or expand. And last 2 years, this is the second budget of this government, and we have seen a lot of consistency and a lot of improvement over previous budgets. We have seen majority of the industries growing last year, and yes, there are some positives and negatives. I am not going into details of the budget because everybody must have read it. But I would like to highlight the positives for the FDIs and for the manufacturing. This capital allowance that increases the claimable period, the SVET removal, the increase of custom duties for some products, example rubber, then incentives for incremental exports by way of a tax exemption, then the point of relaxation of land alienation that has already been touched upon, ROC working for 7 days. But yes, what we have to further address over some next years or future years is that how do we make existing investors to expand their base, and why an FDI will come to any country. What we need is the level playing field. Honorable Finance Minister has already touched upon many areas. I compare with the businesses or manufacturing in India because, of course, we are from India and we have manufacturings in India, and not only our business but other businesses also. Major points, if we compare the manufacturing setup in India and Sri Lanka, are touched upon. What is left out is linking the fuel prices to international crude prices. I think that efforts are on. LPG is already linked to the Saudi Aramco, but other fuels are still awaited to be linked to international crude oil prices. Other thing is attracting exports or supporting exports incentives or exports. There was a request that if the customs can work for 7 days a week. So that will help the companies. They are working for 100% export-oriented units, but not for other companies who are not 100% export-oriented units. Other than that, the incentives on exports. There are incentives which we get like by way of a duty drawback or the import licenses against exports. If these are introduced, that will definitely encourage the manufacturing setup to go towards more and more exports. So I really commend and appreciate the budget, and which is quite encouraging for the FDIs and for the manufacturing sector.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay. I'll move on to, we have Sri Lanka Tobacco. Emma, like to get your observations.
Since arriving in Sri Lanka 3 months ago, one of the most prominent observations I've seen is the vast economic gap between the rich and the poor. And it's very pronounced here in Sri Lanka. Some of the positives in the budget have really tried to address that divide. So the dividend tax, the capital gains tax, the higher income tax rate will go some way into helping that divide become less. But those benefits, or the benefits of these taxes, are just on their incremental extra portion that they're able to have. And the impact of the VAT on the entire population will counterweigh that benefit we'll get from that rich and poor kind of divide, and the rich getting those higher taxes. And that could have a detrimental impact again onto that split between those wealth tiers. These changes will have a significant impact on the lower income earners, where they'll struggle to obtain those basic consumer items, and that will become under pressure with the disposable income. Tobacco has increased by 42% in 2 months alone, which will have an impact on the disposable income that people have to spend on other goods. What's interesting is that I think one of the key things that I note in the budget is, I guess, an English word of tinkering around with the existing ways of doing taxes. So taking a little bit more from here, taking a little bit more from there, is just taking a larger share of an existing pie as opposed to increasing the pie to take the same share and get that growth coming into Sri Lanka. So I think some of the reforms are very short-term focused, rather than looking at the long-term sustainability to continue to keep people interested in the economy within Sri Lanka. And has simplification been achieved, or have we just got a lot of more complexity within those taxes that are in there? So my view is that the future of Sri Lanka will rely on the ability to attract tourism, to attract that foreign investment, to improve the productivity of agriculture to become self-sufficient, and improving labour market efficiencies and filling skill gaps in the workforce. In my view, some of the 2017 budget fails to address some of these items, with the allocation in both education and health being reduced. And those two elements are actually, they're two services since I've come here that I've seen are actually of a very good standard, and are very something for Sri Lanka to be proud on and to work on to improve, and not to stop that investment in, because that's one of the things that will bring foreigners and bring foreign investment into this country. There's lots of mention of trying to have the national food production and have less reliance on importation. But we need to make sure that the tools are there so that these reforms can be successful. And so on paper, the benefits of foreign investment and companies and trying to attract companies into Sri Lanka are positive, and they're positive for the growth and the future of the country. However, we need to continue to that focus to make people want to come here by focusing more on the infrastructure, the sanitation, and providing the right social and economic culture that will make people want to come here and stay here. And starting with that, addressing that gap between the rich and the poor and that disparity through the tax regimes would be an improved budget for this year. I guess companies like here are here today is that we have ideas, we have ways that we have knowledge of the consumers and the way people in the country or in other countries work in big FMCGs and big international companies. We have a lot of information from countries that have gone through the same processes that Sri Lanka are going through now, trying to move from developing to develop, trying to have a better way of life. And some of those learnings that I feel that we could help the government come up with a more collaborative and more predictable kind of budget and reforms going forward. So, thank you.
Thanks, Emma. And I'll move to Sunil, that is GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Chairman.
Good morning, everyone. And first of all, thank you for inviting me over to the panel. I'll speak about a few areas of the budget which, from a policy and proposal, would perhaps in future impact the pharmaceutical industry. Now, currently, over more than 80% of the medicines that are used locally are actually imported. So we have a very, very small local manufacturing, close to around 15-16% of the medicines in Sri Lanka are locally manufactured. Now, to address or attract FDI in this industry, there have been some policies in the past and some proposals which are being addressed in this budget of future, which take care of a few of the barriers. Now, the first barrier typically for this industry has been scale. And I think the government's talking about now focusing on the FTAs, capitalizing on India, China, Singapore, Pakistan free trade agreements, and therefore changing the perspective on scale, which is that this industry will not cater to the 22 million population of Sri Lanka, but perhaps have access to a 3 billion population globally. And that scale dynamics, if addressed well and properly, could perhaps result in attracting FDI. Coupled with that, what's also happening is the focus on infrastructure, because for any FDI to come in, infrastructure development needs to go on. And there is a bit of focus again to sustain and keep investing in FDI, in infrastructure as we move on. There's also talk about setting up free trade zones, giving export concessions, which is at a very macro stage as of now, and therefore more detailed implementation of those free trade zones as life goes on will be critical in terms of evaluating whether Sri Lanka can be positioned as a global hub for this 3 billion population and therefore attract FDI. The second bit, which is around scale, which perhaps have addressed, but the second barrier which also needs to be addressed along with that is skills. So there is a lot of talk around educational reforms, there is focus on skill development, there's always been a lot of focus on skill development, but is it happening at a fast pace? Is it in line with what the country and the industry needs is something which will be, it's the proof lies in the pudding, as we'll get to know in the future. But skill development coupled with scale will be key to success for any FDI attraction, because if one of the two doesn't kind of come in, it might be a bit of a difficult proposition. And the third and most important thing from a pharma industry is that we could get the scale, we could get the skill, but we may also in future proposals start looking at some more concessions from a backward integration perspective. And this applies to things like raw material, machinery. There are some concessions in the current proposal on duties on machinery, which are prohibitively expensive, and in the past have actually resulted in issues around whether one could set up or get FDI. And therefore, a little more focus on getting the right concessions on duties on importing raw material or machinery will perhaps result in Sri Lanka becoming a hub which can provide affordable medicines and quality medicines at affordable price. So that's my perspective on the budget as of now.
Thanks, Sunil. Sanjay, you wanted to say something that I missed here.
Yeah, one point which I missed out is in the budget we have announced that there are incentives for strategic investments or additional or new investments linked with the employment. Yes, employment is very essential and one of the most important element when you give tax incentives. What happens is the number of employment, what is mentioned or which is still not very clear, which I'll request the Honorable Finance Minister to give some insight. For industries or heavy labor-intensive industries also, we all are moving towards more and more automation. So employing 200, 300 people is a big number. Yes, we can have employment of 5,000, 4,000, 10,000 people in garment industry, but for industrial setup like us or in similar setups, 100, 200 people for an investment of $50 million or $100 million is a sizable number. So that needs to be addressed. And secondly, ways and means, again, to encourage the existing investors to expand their base. That is more important.
Thanks, Ajay. I'll move on to Kishu, who everyone knows, MD and CEO of Chevron Lubricants.
Thank you, Nista. To begin with, let me thank you and FT for inviting me. And when the invitation came, I was scratching my head to sort of see whether it's a good thing to take part or a bad thing to take part. Sometimes when you express your views honestly and directly, it has its own, negative implications. But I thought, I don't mind being a bad guy if it helps the country. So that's why I thought it is still a good thing to be a part of this, momentous occasion.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, so having said that, let me just explain to you, being the CEO of Chevron Sri Lanka for the past 17 years. And I've headed the American Chamber of Commerce, I've served on, many chambers. I'm still heavily engaged in committees, all of that. And I do networking on a daily basis. This evening I have 3 events to attend to. So that goes to show that, I'm engaged with what exactly is happening, in our environment. So with the invitation coming in, what I quickly did was to talk to the CEOs and MDs and heads of, many multinationals. And I thought it's good for me to sort of, present a common weave than, talking about my own industry. So obviously, budget is a big thing, and you spend, a lot of time talking about, what could happen, what will be good, what will be bad, and you take into account the prevailing environment, and you make your own assumptions. So before the budget was physically presented, we had doubts about, how the government will basically, make proposals in order to raise revenue, and corporate tax at 28% is actually one of the lowest, within the region. So given the very tight fiscal situation, we thought that the government may take the decision to go back to 35%, which did not happen, which is a great thing. So as my fellow panelists said, there has been consistency, there is consistency, which is a great thing. So in terms of overall budget proposals, the measures taken to basically tighten the fiscal situation should be commented, because if we just went ahead with the kind of balance we had, we would have been in a more difficult situations. So from that perspective, I guess government has done its best. It's a very, very tight global environment, and we all understand how tight the local environment is. So broadly, I must say that as multinationals representing the views of others, we couldn't expect anything better. So from that perspective, I must be direct and honest with you. We are happy. But having said that, as organizations, obviously our costs will go up, our tax will go up in a few areas, all of that. So in terms of how the multinationals view this environment, what is the perception the multinationals have? What's the reality out there in the operating environment? I would make a few comments around that. In terms of how multinationals view countries, they don't just look at a budget presented in a particular year to make investment decisions in favor or against. They look at the track record of a country, and that is what is taken into account when making decisions. So that's something every one of us, has to basically understand. If you think that, just looking at positives of this budget, investors will come, it doesn't happen. And when potential investors come with who I am, what I do, I get invited to speak to them. They come and see me, and there are a lot of informal things that are happening, and decisions are sometimes driven by what they hear from the existing investors. So as far as I'm concerned, as a company that is ranked third in the Fortune 500 today, we're quite happy. We've had a nice journey, good journey. It's a small market, with many positives. But having said that, there are corrections that are needed. So in terms of some of the positives, a good thing about going in the middle or last is that many things have already been covered, so therefore it puts less pressure on you. But incentives for listing, 25% of your taxable income for the previous year, is given as an incentive, which is a great thing. But it's not just listing for the sake of listing. I think if the government had some kind of percentages attached to say, okay, if you list say 50%, this would be the incentives. Kind of a tiered incentive that would have certainly helped the country more. Because if you look at all the listed companies, there are companies that have just floated 4%, 5%, 6%. And versus that, there are other companies that have floated as much as 49%. Chevron is 49%. So which category of companies can create more value? I think we need to go down to that level to ensure that this decision really pays off from the country's standpoint. And then of course my fellow panelists talked about it. 150 employees being the minimum requirement for you to be eligible for incentives. I think it's not just employment only that we should go by. If it is employment, a multinational can come in, start a little supermarket or a apparel outlet, and you can create 200 employment. Does that really help the country? I think we need to think more deeper than that. We need to look at overall value such companies can create. For example, is it going to be local manufacturing using local raw materials, using local services? Is it an export-oriented organization that can bring in foreign revenue into the country in a non-traditional area, ideally? And is this company going to employ expatriates, or is it just local people only? What is the amount of indirect employment they can create? Would they be using the local companies that are set up for various outsourced services? Things like that. And so I think we need to sort of take those into account, come up with a metric where you will really incentivize the companies that will be creating the maximum value for the country. In terms of some of the other areas, our country has not had investor-friendly labor reforms, but through this budget, we've seen some proposals in terms of flexi hours, in terms of extending the contract probationary period from 6 months to 7 months, and performance-based income package, wages, things like that. And in terms of increasing the competitiveness of the country, we ranked 110th, and currently we have 8 processes, as the Honourable Minister in the Parliament presented, which he said will be brought down to 5, which will create a huge difference. But it's not just the number of processes that would help the investors, but how fast those processes can be executed before you are able to actually get into the business. So in terms of some of the corrections needed, I know Anista is giving me various signals, but let me be very quick. Let me have 2 more minutes.
I'll give you another round.
Another round? Okay, so I'll pause for the moment. Thank you.
But you can list your most concerning 3 concerns you may have, or 3 improvements.
Sure.
You can use it.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Consistency in policies. Obviously, the investor community was shocked by the super gain tax, right? And government thereafter responded to it positively and said it's one-off, don't worry, it's not going to come back in. In the recent past, there was this VAT, that was increased, obviously ran into, a lot of issues there, but there was a move to make it retrospective, which again create a lot of doubts in the minds of investors. I think we should try and avoid, such situations. I mean, if the government needs to increase MBT, increase it, but not, with retrospective effect, which can create a lot of doubts, and not only will that discourage new investors, it can also discourage existing investors. And price controls, there are a lot of price controls imposed on a few industries, whether it's maximum price or minimum price. This is not something multinationals like, and they would always compare our situation versus the situations in other countries, peer countries, and these are not happening in those countries. Okay, yeah. That's it?
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Kishore. Excellent. I'll move on to, we have not an investor per se, but an influencer, I would say a global influencer, JICA advisor to the BOI, Mr. Horiguchi, who will give a perspective from the Far East.
Yes, thank you so much. I am very honored to attend here. First of all, concerning to the budget 2017 for the American Japanese business community, just to the some investment incentive issue, just capital allowance and reduce rate of tax. That is very, very comfortable and very important issue. And regarding to the Japanese business community's opinion for your business climate in Sri Lanka, just compare with another neighboring country and ASEAN country, for example. Normally, just the very good condition as like tax level and just employment level, etc., etc. Just only some confused and complicated import trade facilitation, just duty tariff. It's all right, but you have some import-related tax. A little bit difficult to understand for Japanese business community. I think just the tax situation or the totally business climate in Sri Lanka among Japanese business community, not so very bad, is my honestly opinion. And I would like to mention two things, as like not so related to the budget 2017, but you just mentioned as like the direction of the FTA network of Sri Lanka. I think the Japanese business community traditionally not so very consider FTA network traditionally, just de facto based. If some newly emerging markets, the Japanese business community rushing to new market, but now the globalization, Japanese business community must consider just the FTA network. And also now the, as you know, the mega FTA era, as like the TPP in Pacific and Atlantic, the transatlantic between the European community and the United States, and ASEAN plus and East Asia area. I think the Sri Lanka can involve directly or indirectly with the mega FTA network in future. And recently, your Prime Minister and Mr. Minister just mentioned concerning to the extension of the FTA between Sri Lanka and India. I think that issue very, very important for the Japanese business community located here, because for India, just a huge market. So if they produce here and would like to export to Indian market. But I would like to add some words. For satisfy the product origin criteria, 35% of Sri Lankan products, I think they are a little bit not so very easy to satisfy that criteria rates. Just in that case, I would like to propose furthermore existing Japanese business community existed here. Would like to seek the local company supplier or the part maker. In that time, very, very easy to satisfy that criteria. I think my mission or the Japanese business community would like to have some business community directory list, in particular just supplier list or the part maker list. Furthermore, contact between the Japanese business community in here and the local community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Shamin from PwC. I will not let her talk, but she's available for any clarifications on technical matters on the proposals for want of time in terms of conducting this as efficiently as possible. I'll throw it open to the pub for any questions from the audience. I also have some questions already. Who would like to take the first question or clarification? Keep it very short so that we can accommodate as many as possible. We have few roaming mics. Okay. We would prefer question. Yeah. Are the roaming mics, sir? I want questions first of all and observations later. Ravi, you have a question?
Yeah. I think just want a clarification. We see that for the retail investors in the capital market, you have a slightly higher taxation now, which is about 14% when it comes to dividend income as well as unit trust income, the fund level. But in the banking system, we have a final tax of 5% for all investors, which is basically tax at the bank level. My question is there a way we can make it a little bit more fair? Previously, we had 0.5 in the banking system and no tax in most of the capital market. As you know, to mobilize savings and also have a vibrant market in terms of growth, generating the growth in Sri Lanka, where we have a lot of future plans in mega city and so on.
Okay, thanks. We'll take some more questions. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm a medium scale manufacturer where we currently been enjoying SWAT. Now SWAT being stopped.
Sorry, can you start?
Yeah. I'm a manufacturer in terms of supplying to garment industry where we enjoy SWAT. Where SWAT being stopped, it has been I think it will affect us pretty adversely, because we're still not sure whether this deferred tax is going to be applied to us, as well as when we are supplied to a customer base, we are working on a 90-day credit period. As the previously way it was, we have to clear all the taxes by 20th of next month. And that will affect us hugely. That will basically talking about 15% a month, and on 90-day cycle, there's almost 40% of total turnover we have to pay back. So we need some clarification how we can work, because we don't have working capital allocated for this.
Okay, thanks. Honorable Minister, with regard to the LTV ratio,
okay. Can you stand up a bit? It's easy for the minister to identify you.
With regard to the LTV ratio, sir, you have brought down the LTV ratio from 70 to 50%. I work for a finance company. So we have stiff competition with banks. So any person who wants to buy a vehicle, who's putting a 50% down payment, can easily go to a bank. So we are compelled to moving to other products like property lending. And on property also, we don't have priority rights. So we are highly affected by this LTV ratio, sir. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I want questions so that we make maximum use of the minister's time.
Good morning. I represent the governments in Sri Lanka, a foreign owned, and we are also a BUI entity. When we set plant here, we have created 400 plus employment opportunities right now. We were assured of foreigners being able to own lands also and businesses in Sri Lanka. And we were waiting for the budget to set out some guidelines on that, and it's only the apartment sector that got below the 4th level. Are there any openings in that sector? Because this foreigner who owns this business right now wants to largely investment in Sri Lanka, and he would be able to create 2,000 plus job opportunities in Sri Lanka if that is opened up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Minister. I'm from Hades and also Chairman of the National Agribusiness Council. Before I ask the two specific questions or concerns, let me congratulate the Minister for the very holistic and excellent treatment given to agriculture, particularly the transformation from subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture. The two questions that I have, very laudable in terms of nearly 55 proposals to agriculture which really have the potential to transform commercial agriculture, attracting FDI as well. But the two questions, first one relates to land. I think this is a question that has bugged Sri Lanka over the years because the small size of fragmented land, to have economies of scale, working from nucleus farms to outgrower models where you link farmers to models, etc. The first question is regarding, sir, how we can make available through the concept of this land bank in a fast-track manner where specific proposals that can come either individually by local companies or in partnerships with foreign direct investors, and in collaboration with farmer networks, farmer organizations, where we have good workable knowledge. Now, Hades has got an excellent model which can provide a lot of impetus for replicating this. So, firstly is so where we can get the land and how we can fast track availability. You have one mention of Madhura land and the 1,000 hectares and all of the other which are good. But the concern we have, in the many years, a lot of these proposals and attempts were made to create land banks to make it available. How can we fast track the availability where proposals specific for value-added crops linking to a global supply chain can be resident in an entity that can fast track from all the available underutilized and non-utilized high-value agricultural land. The second question...
I'll come back to you. There are a few more questions. I'll come back to you. We'll take your second question later. Yeah.
Is there any plan to reduce the number of taxes? Now we have the NBT, VAT, ESC, and so on. And likewise, the para taxes at the point of import, the PAL, etc., etc.
Thank you very much.
Minister, my question is regarding the financial transaction levy. There's a lot of unclear areas regarding that. So can you please shed some light on that, whether it's going to be charged from the customer or from the bank, and how it's going to happen? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. One here.
Honorable Minister, I will be brief and just to the point. There are 4.6 trillion treasury bonds issued as of right now. Earlier, we used to pay 28% tax on the interest income, but 10% of that was actually a notional tax which was deducted at source. But with the recent proposal to abolish the notional tax credit and also to increase the notional tax from 10 to 14, as per our understanding, the effective tax any investor would pay on government bonds will go up from 28 to 38.08. So corporate tax being 28, whereas on a government security you will have to pay 38%. So the investors will look at it that if they invest in a fixed deposit or a corporate debt, they will have to only pay 28. But if you buy a government security, you will have to pay 38. So investors will be discouraged to move on to the government securities. And another thing that can happen is to compensate this, actually market rates will have to go up, technically.
Right.
And that will increase the government expenditure. So your thoughts on this?
Thank you. I think Minister has
Yes, I represent capital markets. My question is, profits from investment in listed securities and other instruments have been exempted. Does it include all debt and equity, or is it only debt?
My question is to the Honorable Minister. I wish to know the rationale behind restricting land ownership of RPCs to 5,000 acres, Honorable Minister.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions? I like the buzz in the room with lots of questions. There's one more.
I'm representing a corporate treasury, Minister. Your final budget actually gave a good direction for the foreign borrowings, but sad to say it took almost 6 to 7 months to publish the gazette and regulations to come out. And this time also I think you all have allowed even the finance companies to borrow from outside Sri Lanka. And I don't know how long will it take the regulations to come out, because the funds won't be available until we get ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Mister, do you mind if I respond other than my mental blockade?
Yeah, I know. I was going to say. It's tougher than your budget speech. Yeah, I'll restrict I won't ask questions. There are a lot of questions here. I'll allow the Minister to respond, and then we'll see whether we can take the rest.
Pardon me if I have missed out any questions. Ravi's question, yes, and I appreciate the input you did before the budget, and some of them were taken into consideration. I would solicit your assistance in order to clear certain ambiguities, but I don't want to profess that I know it all here. So, yes, there is a ray of doubt in one of the questions you asked, and I would prefer getting you down and getting an answer given, but I don't want to give a wrong statement. SFAT, unfortunately, this is the area which was misused. And we call upon the investors, if they are genuine, we are given enough of incentives to come out. Private sector, it is the time to stop doubting. Don't be postponing your decision to invest tomorrow, do it today. We are giving you all the incentives in investment relief, in depreciation allowances, all of that. And I think this is the best time that we have given all this. On the areas of SFAT, the reason we stopped was complete misuse. Really, the manufacturers that were selling to these companies were having a dichotomy, because some of them were being used by one company, sold to the other, and using that advantage to the disinterest of the country. So that's the reason we stopped it. There will be no delays at all. It will be because of the remis system that is being implemented. It will be spot on, so you won't waste any time at all. And we'll be giving the guarantee that you will have no delays at all in your refunds that are there. So if you have any further problem, please do come along, because exporters is one area that we have been wanting to assist in a very big way, and we have done so. In the areas of land ownership, well, I think this gentleman asked about the land bank, etc. Our intention is to free, because almost 80% of the land is held by the government, either at national level or at provincial level. And our intention is put it on the land bank so that you all have an opportunity to find out land, come back to us, and able to get it in less than 2 to 3 months. That's the way forward. And we are looking at 1,000 acres and above. Same time, I would take the RPC question that was asked last, so that it's the same land related. Why we basically looked at 5,000 acres is simply that the present RPCs, there are some who are managing very well, the others are misusing, some are fraudulent using. We as a golden shareholder, being the treasury, have no knowledge at all as to what's going on in the RPCs. We have subsidized as much as 14 billion last year, and if it was on a public-private partnership or commercialized, why should the taxpayers be paying for some benefit that is used by the RPCs? So even during the foreign companies, when they owned Chauvelers, George Stewart, Vitors, etc., it was 5,000 to 6,000 acres that was managed. Here, the question, Sarath, from what you asked is, you all have 26,000 acres. How on earth can one company manage that? You all use it to your balance sheet advantage. We want to ring fence it to a specific use of that particular one. With his asset given by the government, not to fatten the balance sheet. I mean, you all run well, I don't say at all, but the other 19, they have a problem. So we break it up into 5,000 units, and you can take 2, 3, 4 units, that's not a problem. As long as you manage well, you get a head start to get it. So I guess there's no better rationale than that. We cannot afford to use taxpayers' money to subsidize some RPC who basically uses either when the tea price is going down, they use that as an excuse to get additional funding that is there. There was a question
you have about companies buying into foreign or
yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thanks. That's a very important one. Yes, we are encouraging. The reason what we did was we did not want foreigners to come and buy land at the expense of the locals who don't have the spending power. But if a foreigner who, like your person, who is interested in developing the country, all the opportunities opened up. If it's public limited company, we have opened a freehold. There's no problem at all. If it is foreigners wanting to invest in Sri Lanka, we have given 2 criteria. A job creation of more than 250, which you have covered, or you should have X amount of turnover, which adds value to the economy. This should be maintained for 3 years, and then you can lease it for 99 years and do what you want. That has been the policy that we'll pursue, so that there cannot be any misuse. If by chance a foreigner comes in and says, I want to have 10,000 jobs, but at the end of 2.5 or 3.5 years, 2.5 years, he decides that he wants to sell the land, then we'll slap a tax on that, because that was not the intention what the government wanted to give. And I guess that's the most fair approach that we have looked at. And if you have any better improvements to this, please do come along. But don't waste time for tomorrow. You get the approval start now, and you can be part of nation development.
Ravi, just a usual question is, from when would this particular foreign come into force?
Immediately, 10th of November, from midnight.
On the apartments and as well?
Same.
Okay.
Then
I'll remind you, there was a question about rationalizing
financial transaction levy. It is taken by the banks not to be passed down to the consumer. It's very clear, and so the consumer will not get affected. It into the top line or the bottom line of the bank. The HSBC is here. I'm sure they are already, we have pre-consented on this before we put it on to the consumer. So, then the areas of the government securities, so I think your knowledge is once again superior. I would like you to come. There are certain areas of discomfort, and it is our intention not to reduce the liquidity in the market. We want activeness in it. But certainly, if you are in the primary market, why waste? 98% of the captive markets are in government control. So why worry whether from where it comes in? So if it's a secondary market, only you have the issue, and certainly will come on. So I presume you are in the second category, not the first. You come along and please give your input. We'll appreciate that. Foreign borrowings, I think it was asked for. Thank you. And I think it is corrected. There was, I think, section 46.2 or something opened up about 2 years ago. And then central bank on their own brought a 35% limit. We have taken all those limits out. Any bank, any non-banking institute, or any company, on the strength of your balance sheet, you can borrow from overseas. But the only thing you have got to get to confirm is that you have a currency swap, so that that swap, the exchange, if there is a devaluation or if there is anything, that won't impact on the government. So you could see it's a risk-free approach. You all are free to get as much as your balance sheet can strengthen to get, and we have no problem at all. And it's effective with immediate effect. Right? And if you have a problem, please do contact, because sometimes what we as policymakers spell out takes months of years or something to get, because the government servant sits on that. So we would like to see whether there is any delay in such implementation. Well,
there was a tax question on rationalizing all these taxes.
Debt to equity and...
No, NBT, PAL, all that. When would you go?
Yes, I think the gentleman asked about the question of taxes. When we took office, there was 46 taxes and levies. Last year, we reduced to 35. This year, we have basically reduced by 3 to 4. Our intention is 25. But if all the tax-paying community pay their taxes, we have no problem bringing to 3 or 4 taxes. But the problem when they skip from one end to the other, we need to catch them from somewhere. And that's the reason why, to be very frank, that you have at least 25, 30 going on. So I hope that this will get the message across that avoiding is not the answer. Pay your little share and reduce the numbers from the present 35 to maybe 25 next year.
Minister, but we had the FTL and the carbon tax. Those are new ones.
Yes.
So how can you say
the
that?
The world is changing, so we also got to keep changing. You know, they go in Paris and they put a tax. So you expect us to be out of that. Yeah. We are not Donald Trump.
So what's the number right now? 35 or?
35, that's right. Okay. 46 was reduced to 35.
It still feels a lot.
Three. I think we reduced 1 or 2, and we reduced 4 and added 2.
Yeah, okay, so it's... So no significant improvement. Just on one, there are a few questions.
If you don't mind, I will just go on to the panelists. I think that is very important what they mentioned before. Yeah. There were certain things which the mentioned from, I think, Port City. I appreciate the things you mentioned about the 40%. We certainly don't mind increasing it further if we see that there's a positive trend, because the debt servicing has to be from overseas. So it doesn't matter at the initial stage if they want to come and take advantage. So certainly we don't mind opening. Sanjay, on the areas of customs is 24/7 from 1st January. It is today even also it is open, but the implementation will be fully blown from January. Then the employment linked to your investments, why we have done so is to ensure that employment is the most important aspect. Because others, there is a certain misuse if we basically only allocate it to investment or we allocate it to turnover. So we have linked all three, investments, value added, and the labor criteria, and look at the best option. It's not all three. It's one of the three that you maintain, that is good enough. So if you look at trying to get mechanized from the labor-oriented investment approach that you had, we certainly will look at the turnover and the value addition, because the reduction in labor would obviously increase your efficiency. So that value added is good enough to be eligible to your investment criteria. Tobacco, I guess it was a comment that was made. And on Glaxo, I look at what you said, and I guess there is a little bit of discomfort with certain policies that have come on health, but I leave it to the health minister to come out, because he's a doctor and he's taking it with the consultation of the industry, and I presume that things will be settling down before too long. Krisho, on what you basically mentioned on 3-4 areas, I like your frankness. We have no problem at all. We only want to do is that you all are as frank as paying the taxes, so that there's no problem for us. So I guess you're a multinational. There's no distinction between a small SME or a corporate public company here or multinational. We treat all of them same. In a matter of fact, we prefer it being a totally Sri Lankan company, because that is 100% value added. So when it looks at the multinationals, we look at it as is what is good for us, rather than look at what is good for them. So in that process, we see that they have certain advantages which we can't match. So there we look at it to the best advantage of the country. And I mean, if you're an American company, if you do what Donald Trump did, then you won't have you won't have an opportunity in Sri Lanka. So what we are basically saying is that we like you all taking full advantage, because certain areas you all have expertism that we won't be able to have in the next 10, 15 years. But look at it for nation development. That's all that we are basically looking at. But appreciate your frank comments that are there. Then the super gains were imposed at a particular time when we came in, because there was a lot of political expectation. And I guess owing to the super gain, there were 3 or 4 companies I mentioned, like Lodestar, they saved themselves because there was a countervailing duty on them. Because they had the super gain, they survived. So once on and off, super gain is helpful for the companies that try to take advantage of countervailing duties. But it won't come, don't worry. On the areas of JICA, I didn't get you quite wrong. I think it was mentioned that there are different duties and tax structures.
The value addition to qualify for FTAs, because there is a 35%.
No, he said he appreciated 35%.
You want it lower? He wants it lower because there is a difficulty. Because particularly you're going for a lot of FTAs now.
Yeah, if Japan can give us the same, we'll give the same to them. It's so difficult to get into the Japanese market. You want us to open to have access to India. So I guess if you have 35%, 25%, we'll reciprocate the same. But there's an international norm that we can't go below. And if you look at the Indian market, 35% is a bare minimum. What we want to do is to have market access. We are looking at India, we are looking at Pakistan, you will have Bangladesh before long, you will have Singapore, you will have Japan, Korea, all of them. We are looking at expanding on a bilateral basis. And we will certainly look at the country of origin status at being 35%. I guess that's all that was there.
Kishu, just a quick, well, to the point.
Yeah, sure. FDI investment decisions are made by people. One issue we have in Sri Lanka is the painful process we have in place to be able to issue a business visa. It's very, very tedious, and a lot of people are, crying about it. If anything can be done about it, because first impression is not good. Before somebody sort of, comes and makes the investment, he or she has to go through this business visa process. And if that process is unfriendly and too tedious and difficult, I don't think, it creates a positive, impact.
Well, I think going to the time factor, that entire area was unable to be read out at the time of the budget. But it is in the budget that we have given a visa on arrival, and a business visa is basically 30 days given on arrival itself. As well as companies such as yours. Sometimes there's a big difficulty in getting visas for your foreigners if they come and stay. We have opened it up for 5 years. You don't need to get it every year. And we have made it much more liberal. This was a request that came from the Indian CEOs forum, and we responded very positively by allowing it open for 5 years. So
is that in place?
Sorry?
Is that in place now?
It is in place from midnight 10th of November.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
So that's not an issue. Even what we have done is we have brought in the immigration police, because there was a complaint saying that there are a lot of neighboring countries that come and misuse entry visa of the holiday visa into a tourist visa into a permanent stay visa. So we have increased the immigration police in the country and opened it up. Of course, you get caught, you'll be fined ₹1 million.
Minister, just have several submissions on one aspect. You're looking at increased listing next year. You're also giving tax concessions, but the context is that about 80 odd companies are going to get delisted this year because of various public float requirements. And despite the incentives available, not many companies are listing. You spoke about CSE must list 25 more IPOs. Where does that confidence come for the government?
Well, delisting is owing to the present regulations that are there, not imposed by the government.
That's fine. Yeah,
so that's an area which needs to have a relook, and we will get that as soon as possible looked into. But I think Kishore mentioned a good point of trying to have a percentage that is on, and I think that's a good suggestion, and we'll look at that. What we did was to open up and get at least 10%. You have to have a minimum of 15% on the market.
But that wasn't implemented. That was a proposal only. I don't think companies followed it.
No, I think all companies that are on is minimum 10%.
No, but today there are companies where only 6% is floated, 4% is floated.
Then it's policy not being adhered.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But okay, we will look at. We are calling the stock exchange, security exchange. We want them to be doing a policing role and not a CID role. At the moment, they're doing that, which is to the discredit of, or they're fearful to the investors. We want it to be made a much more investment-friendly climate that is there.
There was also a question that we have enough low corporate risk, but there is from 12 to 28% is a huge jump. How would you justify companies having to go up from 12 to, some were exempted, but 12 to 28%?
Now we have three slabs. That is 0, 14, 20, 0, 14, 28, 40. So some have moved up because once again, there is no national gain. So we have looked at wherever that is possible, exports, IT companies, we are given the benefit. But wherever we have seen misuse, we have brought them back into tax fall. So just because it was given at a time when it was thought good, but then it has been misused, we need to bring it back into good order.
Yeah.
2 points. Proposal to increase the minimum capital investment.
Sorry, I just see DST article here. You could respond to 2 or 3 areas after the meeting to those tax matters article, okay?
The minimum capital investment by the bank, like the foreign banks, I think the criteria of 20 billion capital for all the banks, out of the 12 foreign banks, I think only 2 banks qualify to that level, and rest all are below 10 billion of capital investment. So I think that will discourage banks to come in, because for FDIs you need foreign banks here in Sri Lanka. And in many countries, the parent company's capital is considered as the requirement for capital adequacy.
This particular thing came out with the complete consent of the banking association. I'm sure HSBC is here. If there are any other banks,
HSBC qualifies for that. So
yes. So you're marketing them free of charge.
Yeah.
So the rest of the banks had no problem, because the initial criteria was they should have had 100 million when they came in. Now 100 million, the rupee devalued, but they didn't bring the dollars in. So now we have got a realignment where they basically have 130 million, which is 20 billion. So it is not a prohibitive element, and none of the banks complain, because that is a necessity in today's context. If the requirement is for a win-win approach, they should basically come in. But none of the other foreign banks have the problem.
I don't know, so we have been approached, I have been approached by the banks, so I just raised this point.
Indian
And
banks, I'm just is that given what is your confidence level in terms of making sure that all the proposals, except approved, will get implemented by 1st of January?
Well, there are 3 areas. One is immediate, that is November 10th, which is in vogue. Some of them by 1st of January, which was spelled out, and the others are 1st of April or into the tax year. We believe that every single one of them will be on time, and our officials at the Treasury would ensure that it will be done 1 month before, not later. So you are looking at last year's problem, but that was a different problem. It was a mismatch of certain things, but this time it was a more unison approach, and you could see that being through the media these days.
Thank you very much. Minister has some urgent business in Parliament. Anything that you feel that someone needs to clarify based on some of the answers provided by the Minister? Okay. Shamin, any one concern that you have on the text, so that before Minister we can release the Minister?
Well, in terms of a concern, the theme of this budget is mostly to simplify the tax base and broad base the tax base, and I think that the proposals are towards moving in that direction. Some of the exemptions, some of the sweeping exemptions that were enjoyed have now been taken out. But the only request is that in taking out those sweeping exemptions, I mean, we have to come out of this mentality that we need exemptions all the time, and our tax to GDP ratio is low, we need to increase our taxes. But in taking out those exemptions, just to analyze it for each sector and maybe restrict the exemption to certain sectors, but not to take it out completely, especially with respect to the 13DDD and the IT and BPO sector. So just the only concern I have.
The IT and BPO sector has no impact at all. The taxes remain the same. It will certainly be the next couple of years to come.
The exemption will continue.
Exemption continues. There's no touching on that area. But if you look at, there are certain significant changes that we have done. Is when we took office, the revenue to GDP was 10.2. Today is 13.6. We'll look at 15 by the end of the year, end of next year. So these are matters that will help to increase fiscal space. You could see your taxpayers' monies are put to best use. IRRs are looked at, cost-benefit analysis, value addition, all of them before any investment is committed. The next one is the KPIs. Now this is something which is unique. We are bringing it on top to bottom, starting from the ministers downwards. And the officials get trapped in where we are putting them on a public service delivery act which comes in, which requests you to, or if you're a government servant, to respond within 10 working days for a request that has been made to you. If not, it's deemed as if it's been approved. So these are things that are being done, which are already happening in some of the Eastern European countries that have opened up, working very successfully. So on that basis, these are areas that we are looking at anew, and we would appreciate any private sector or anybody's ideas towards this, because we want to ensure that we are in line with any other developing country or developed country, so that we will not be lagging behind. And the FTAs are one access method that we are using for investing in Sri Lanka, or investment marketing Sri Lanka as an investment destiny, because I'm sure the market access that will come through this process is something which is significant.
I'll allow you to, please. Is it a question? While the mic comes to him, Minister, you should listen to this question directed at Glaxo. How is the price control on paracetamol affect your continuity business in Sri Lanka?
First of all, I'd just like to clarify that we as an organization would like to abide and comply to what the price gazette has asked us to do. So we've written to NMRA, we've gone ahead and we've kind of moved to the new price from midnight of 21st. And that's the value of our organization. I think in the long term, medium to long term, this isn't really sustainable, but that's where GSK's values say that we need to partner with the government and have a dialogue. And that's what we'll work towards, having a dialogue with the government, with the health ministry, so that actually get affordable medicine, but which is sustainable for every organization. So that's the way we are today. That's where we are today.
Thank you, Sunil. Yeah.
Minister, Honorable Minister, I have a question that is basically when we see the budget, we saw after 3 days, then there was another tax came in for the water. So, in same way, will there be any changes after few days? Because I know that you withdrawn some public transport taxes on what you call traffic fine or something like that. So, will there be any changes just as a customary process?
Well, we are taking action on that particular action taken by the chairman of that water board, because there was no approval that was given at all, and it was typically being inconsistent, which we did not want to create. That's why it was withdrawn yesterday. There is necessity for increases, for sure, especially the industry. They get water almost next for nothing, but it's not the way that it was done. It will be a much more rational approach that will be there, and certainly not the innocent consumers that will have to called upon to pay 30% like what you have done. So I'm sorry on behalf of the government. That was not the intention, and there won't be any such inconsistent actions that will be taken.
Yeah. Question
so,
brief.
Kishore, that answers to your consistency.
Yeah.
We will be consistent, and we want the private sectors to be as consistent.
Yeah, I must acknowledge that very rarely ministers apologize in public. So hats off to you for saying sorry. Great.
I'm speaking on
I
behalf
hope
of
FT will report that.
Yeah, you're on record.
that should be your headline.
Yeah.
So that should be his headline.
Public apology.
No, don't say public apology. All you got to say is that there was no intention of the budget, and some smart guy tried to make an undue advantage for his KPIs. So I must say that he's trying to do his job.
I'm speaking on behalf of all the entrepreneurs and the interest of the country. Basically, as a factor of production, the capital, we must make it more efficient as well as competitive to the country to position ourselves in the world market. But posing any tax on banking, whether you emphasize it should be only borne by the bank, it will never happen. It gets transferred in the pricing mechanism. So eventually, it's the customer who pays as a whole. So the banking system should not be tapped as a basis of collecting tax for the government. You have to go directly to the businesses and collect it. Because the more and more you tax the bank, you see either rain or shine, the banks are making adequate profit to the shareholders. It has never gone down. But there are seasons, but it's very short-lived because the pricing mechanism get automatically correct, not automatically, they price it in such a way. So you're making the entrepreneurship more and more difficult as well as incompetitive in the world market.
That would be the archaic thinking. That for the safety zone that the banks were operating. We are going to ensure that they will be competing for their profits that they have got to earn. Because at the moment, each bank makes 20 billion, 30 billion. Consciously, they must ensure that there is a limit that you can basically take on. As for the banks, we are going to have more competition coming in, and I'm sure that will bring the rate stability that is there. We find certain government banks having a spread of 5 to 6% owing to inefficiencies that have been kept in. Ensure those things are taken off. The foreign banks are much more competitive. That is there. But they also hide behind, because when the government banks has a 5 to 6% owing to the administrative cost being high, these inefficiencies need to be taken off. When you look at the banks in the peer countries lending at much lower rates, you're wondering as to what's happened in Sri Lanka. So we will ensure that that international competition comes to Sri Lanka. And we will ensure, that's why we have been persuasive in ensuring that there are certain portfolio lending in a manner what the government wants and not just consumption-oriented lending. So I'm sure that is the way that we are going to take it. A bank license is given to do banking, not leasing. These are things that are going on. Or if you say to give agriculture, they give it for pawning. We need those areas corrected, and these are with the discussion of the banks, and it's a win-win approach that we want to take. We don't want to just slam it on. But certainly, the safety zone approach that the banks were working on, they have got to get out and have their feet to the ground and work there. Because at the moment, you have parate execution on one side, you have the crib on the other side. What more safety does the banks want? So get moving. That's as much as the private sector is told to get, have a wake-up call. The banks need to come out from that safety zone that they were there and ensure that the banks lend to the people who want that money. That's what propels economic growth in the country. Not to just have a fat balance profit at the end of the year and say we have given this amount to the shareholders. We'll be discouraging that type of approach.
Thank you very much. In the absence of any further questions, I'll leave it to Savitri to handle the rest of the proceedings.
I do. Thank you very much, Minister. I do believe the Minister has to leave. The very fact that he has been here for over 1.5 hours, actually 1 hour and 45 minutes, is indeed appreciated. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I'd like to invite Mr. Sarma Mahalingam, the President of the MBA Alumni Association, to please present a token of appreciation to the Minister for his presence here, for sharing his thoughts, his views, and also answering those rather insightful questions. I'd also like to invite Mr. Mr. Thusita De Silva to present these tokens of appreciation to our panelists, two of our panelists. Mr. Sunil Mehra, Mr. Thusita De Silva. To Mr. Sunil Mehra, who is the chairman of GlaxoSmithKline Consumer, and to Mr. Liang Taoming, the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer of the CHEC Port City, Colombo. Thank you very much, Mr. De Silva. Ms. Eshani Tenuara, could I please have you up here to present these thank yous to Dr. Kishu Gomez, the Managing Director and CEO of Chevron Lubricants Lanka PLC, to Ms. Emma Ridley, the Finance Director of Ceylon Tobacco Company, and to Mr. Hideo Horiguchi, who is the advisor for the BOI from JICA. Thank you, Mr. Enura. Mr. Vidushan Premathiratna, could we have you up here? And he will be saying thank you to Mr. Sanjay Tiwari, the Managing Director and CEO of Piramal Glass Salon, PLC, Ms. Charmaine Tilakaratna, Director Tax Services of PwC Sri Lanka, and to our moderator, Nistar Kasim. So with a big thank you to our panel for making this post-budget forum yet another very interesting discussion. We look forward to seeing you again next year around the same time. But before we close, I would like to invite Mr. Kulendran Sivaram to propose the vote of thanks.
President of MBA Alumni Association, Mr. Sharma Mahalingam, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizers, it gives me a great pleasure to say thank you to all those who have made this event possible and successful. This is the 7th consecutive year Post-Budget Forum is organized by the MBA Alumni Association and University of Colombo and Daily FT. We place on record our deep and sincere appreciation of Finance Minister Honorable Ravi Karunanayake for being present here today as the chief guest and deliver his messages. We acknowledge the presence of University of Colombo MBA Coordinator Dr. Pavitra Kailasapati. We also grateful to Ms. Charmaine Tilakaratna for being here and her team for technical support on Budget 2017. I also wish to thank the eminent panelists for sharing their valuable insights and perspectives of the budget. Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, Mr. Liang Tao-Ming of Colombo Port City, Managing Director CEO Dr. Kishu Gomez of Chevron Lubricants PLC, Chairman Mr. Sunil Mehra of Glasgow Cement Line, Finance Director Ms. Emma Ridley of Ceylon Tobacco Company, Managing Director CEO Mr. Sanjay Tiwari of Piramal Glass Ceylon PLC, Advisor to Board of Investment Mr. Hideo Horiguchi, Japan International Cooperation Agency. We wish to express our sincere gratitude to our key exclusive strategic partner, HSBC Sri Lanka, for joining with us this post-budget forum for the first time. This event would not have been possible without the immense support from your organization, which have been a pillar of strength throughout. For the event of this magnitude, we had the support of partners and sponsors such as Pay TV sponsor, SLTPO TV, electronic media partner Gold FM, print partner Haley's Cafe Pixel, and also we acknowledge the continuous support from our creative partner Redworks. Further, our sincere appreciation goes to Hotel Galadari staff and AV Dynamics for their support to make this event a success. Lastly, I say a big thank you to all our invitees and participants who are here today. Thank you for the trust and choosing us, even though there were similar events happening at the same time. Your participation made the difference and has encouraged us to continue our focus on this event. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you in future events too. Have a pleasant day. Thank you.